Good evening, everyone, and welcome into the Forge Podcast. This is episode 21, brought to you by Shotgun Sports Network Alabama of the Shotgun Sports Network. My name is Ryan Messer, and we've got a lot to get into tonight with this podcast. We have to go into the Bulls, who took on the Making Mayhem on Friday, as well as the Squadron, who had a pair of games here in Birmingham this past week, along with some Stallions news as they released their theme schedule and had a transaction, and as well as the UFL, who wound up announcing in plans to expand. So, but before we get into all that, I want to make sure you guys know how thankful we are here that you watch continuously, whether it's on Facebook or YouTube, or if you're listening to us on iHeart, or Spotify, Apple Podcast, Audible, wherever you're finding the podcast. So thank you guys for that. If you like what you see, make sure you hit the like and share. If you don't, make sure you let us know what you're wanting to see and what you're wanting to see more of. So thank you for that. But we also have to thank Blue Spring Living Water. They're still continuously keeping us hydrated, and they're clean, healthy water that's bottled right at the source, right over there in Blount County, Alabama. It's right down the road, so make sure you take a step toward a healthier life with Blue Spring Living Water. And with that, this is episode 21 of the Forge Podcast. Jumping right on into the Birmingham Bulls, who had a transaction this past week where left winger Hugo Koch was actually traded yesterday to Pensacola for future considerations, and he will be replacing former Birmingham Bull Matt Wisner, who is on the Pensacola IR right now. So wish him the best over there in Pensacola. Maybe not so much, because that would definitely mean that they'd be beating us. But Friday we actually had a game versus the Making Mayhem, and things started off with Bailey Birkin in the net for the Mayhem and Stewie in for the Bulls. And Carson Road got things, the lead, who is the league's leading scorer right now, got things going with a goal right before the 9-minute mark. With 4:52 left to play in the first, we also saw Troy McTavish drop the gloves with Brad Ginion, resulting in each party in the box with the major, but Macon wound up also getting a minor for roughing prior to the fight there. We also saw Seth Benson get caught for a roughing a minute and 19 before the intermission there. And then going into the second, Macon wound up getting the puck in the net with 3:03 into the period. Almost immediately answered by Corson Green, scoring just a minute and 12 later. The Bulls then went on the power play just past the 7-minute mark for roughing. And just past the halfway mark of the second period, we saw Kyler Matthews drop the glove with Dan Winslow of the Mayhem. Just over 2 minutes later, we saw the Bulls back on the power play for a roughing. And then Tyler Brierly was able to capitalize on that one just 50 seconds into the power play. Then with just over 5 minutes left to play in the second, we saw Troy McTavish drop gloves with Mateo Ibarra of the Mayhem. And then after they were finished, Jamie Dorsey went at it with Alex Cohen. McTavish, Dorsey, Cohen, and Ibarra were both assessed with the majors for fighting, but Dorsey and Cohen were also both assessed with double majors for game misconduct for fighting after the altercation. So, going into the third, we also saw the Bulls back on the power play just 21 seconds in, and Ben Higgins scored just moments after the power play expired, before he even had a chance to get out of the box there. So less than 2 minutes later, we saw Nikita Kazarev put the puck in the net. Following that goal, Macon Mayhem wound up making a change in the net, bringing in Dyson Skinner to replace Birkin. 5:26 in the third, Ryan Romeo was charged for a delay at game, and then the Mayhem were only able to score one more time as just past the halfway mark, but that's about all that they could do there for that game. The standings right now, even with the win, Birmingham is in 5th place. The leaders right now in the standings are Fayetteville Marksmen at 1st, Huntsville Havoc at 2nd, Peoria Rivermen at 3rd, and the Knoxville Ice Bears in 4th. The Bulls are headed for a 3-day road trip starting on Thanksgiving, as they will be taking on the Huntsville Havoc on Thursday and Friday. Then going down to Pensacola on Saturday. So if you have a chance and you're not got anything going on Thursday or Friday, maybe head up to Huntsville, cheer on the Bulls. So that'd be a great time for them. Switching over to the Birmingham Squadron. Had a few transactions this past week, where on Monday the Pelicans recalled Carlo Matkovic, the center there. And then on Wednesday, we found out that the Pelicans signed Elfrid Payton, and to replace him, the Squadron wound up signing Nicholas Robinson out of Western Carolina. And then on Thursday, we saw the Pelicans reassign Carlo Matkovic after a few games in New Orleans back to Birmingham. So good to have him back. He's always really good, and he had a great weekend this past weekend as well. So on Friday, we saw things getting started rough early for the squad, as they could not really get anything going, as the Spurs quickly jumped out to a 10-2 lead. They continued that for a while, back and forth for a while, until midway through the quarter. The Squadron did eventually start trying to get some points and having to take some shots in the paint, as they could not get any shots because that defense for Austin is really good. By the end of the quarter, they were able to make a great comeback and tie it up, and then the Squadron kept it close there in the beginning stages of the second, and eventually took the lead with 4.5 left to play in the half. But then Austin was able to come back and take a 1-point lead at halftime. The Squadron was still keeping it close to start the second half, but then by the halfway mark of the third period, the Spurs began pulling away, and they wound up leading 82-69 at the end of the third. Going into the fourth, the Squadron did start cutting away at that lead, but couldn't come within 10 throughout the fourth quarter, as they were just unable to get anything going. Even on the loss, though, Carlo Matkovic and Isaiah Brockington both had double-double nights for points and rebounds. On Sunday, they wound up hosting the OKC Blue again. On Saturday, the Blue jumped out to an 8-2 lead early, And then the Squadron made a little bit of a comeback midway through the first quarter. But then the Blue quickly retook the lead, and the Squadron were unable to retake it in the first. They were eventually able to retake the lead into the eighth, halfway, with 8.5 left to play in the half. But both teams went back and forth throughout the rest of the half, and then until Birmingham did retake the lead. 3:43 left to play in the half and held the lead all the way to halftime. They finally held the lead throughout the third quarter, and then actually held the lead throughout the early stages of the fourth quarter, but they exchanged the lead throughout the final period of play, and the game came down to the final minute where Trey Mitchell wound up tying it up with a 3-point shot, but then the Blue were able to go 5 unanswered as the time expired. So, but even with that loss, Karlo Matkovic also had another double-double night for 13 points and 14 rebounds. As it stands right now, Birmingham is sitting at 2-4 and 7th place in the Southern Division of the NBA G League for the tournament they're in right now for the NBA G League. Previews for next week, we have tonight. Actually, they're actually in Austin taking on the Spurs as we speak right now. And then on Saturday, the Memphis Hustle will be in town. So make sure if you don't have anything planned on Saturday, head out to the Squadron game. It'd be a great time for everyone, the whole family, something for everybody. They're actually going to have a bobblehead giveaway that night. So if you can, make it down there. Be a great night for the entire family. Switching over to the Birmingham Stallions. We had a transaction this past week, as on this past Monday, before we aired, Birmingham announced that Armani Taylor Prolu was actually re-signed, so good to have him back. Then on I think Thursday, they announced the promotional schedule. So game 1 will be Red Rain, so it's going to be a red out. Everybody wear your red Stallions gear, and it's going to be a championship celebration as well. So then on the next game 2 would be rodeo night. We know how the country culture surrounding this area can be sometimes, so make sure you wear your cowboy hats and all of that. And then School Spirit Night will be the next theme night. And then, so wear whatever your team gear is, your school spirit gear. So then on the next night, on the 4th game, will be Faith, Family, and Football Night. So if you have church friends, whatever, bring the whole family out to the game. Great night for church groups to get together and come out to a game. And then Hats Off to Heroes will be the final theme night. So probably going to be right around Memorial Day for that game. So great night. Great showing there. They always have some kind of giveaway or some kind of special something going on, meet and greet, something. So it's going to be a great time, great season. As soon as we find out what that schedule is, I know it's supposed to be here in a couple weeks. We will get that to you, and we will break it down for you game by game. And it's going to be great. Cannot wait for the season to get started. Elsewhere in the UFL, sorry there. Technical issues. AJ McCarron. I'm sure everybody's heard the news about AJ McCarron getting dropped from the uh, St. Louis Battlehawks. Well, on 11/15, the Battlehawks released on social media that AJ would not be returning, using the verbiage providing a clear path forward as he decides what's next in his football future. That kind of made it sound like it was more his decision than their decision. But he immediately fired back. And on a radio show last Monday that we didn't have a chance to check out before the podcast, AJ said that he had originally was told by other teams that he was going to be traded, that they had reached at the St. Louis Battlehawks had actually reached out to him about that. So, but he reached out to Anthony Beck, and who confirmed that they are not going to move forward with him next year. AJ mentioned that he's a free agent basically, and that they can't really trade him if he doesn't re-sign. So Beck basically said that he was going to turn them in for tampering, but they had no substance. They didn't know what teams had reached out. So, and also it was outside of any kind of early signing, whatever. So there was no substance there. AJ talked to Beck again, and they seemed to be on decent terms later on, and they were going to actually work with AJ apparently just a few weeks ago apparently, and get a joint statement out there that let him thank the city, whatever. But AJ found out that from his son, who ran in to see him, ask him if he was done with the Battlehawks and he wasn't playing with them anymore. And that's when he saw it. So AJ immediately fired out to that radio show and said that he was going to discuss this whole thing, whatever. But he did discuss where he does want to go. He wants to go somewhere where he can play St. Louis twice a year. And he also wants to go somewhere where he can play for a championship. So that kind of narrows it down a little bit there. And the only team he did mention by name was Birmingham, but he had only mentioned that was a place that he would like to go potentially, but he has not reached out to them yet. So honestly, where do I think he lands? Birmingham. It would be great for the city. St. Louis, was one of the higher attended games and one of the most viewed games for the season last year for Birmingham. But I really don't think he fits the system here that Coach Holtz has developed. He's not very mobile, and he would not be a fan of a 2-quarterback system because Coach Holtz wants somebody that is able to run the ball. So, but it would have to be a whole system built around him, and this majority of the core of this team is already built. We already have a lot of this team already together, but I really don't think he would wind up here in Birmingham. Who knows? Might be, but that's just me. San Antonio, they already have their quarterbacks. I mean, they just picked up Mon, so I really don't think any of those guys are going anywhere. Arlington will probably be getting Perez back, so I really don't think he'd be going there. But the only place I would see him going would be DC, unless any crazy deals or trades are made. I think DC would be the best spot for him. But we'll keep you posted as soon as we hear anything. We know how much AJ McCarron is loved in this area for what he did at Alabama, but and then growing up down in Mobile. So who knows? He might be, but I'd really doubt it. Then yesterday the UFL actually announced their intent to expand, which was something that people have been talking about since the UFL first announced that they were going to only cut down to 8 teams um, when in the merger. So um, they said that they are looking for core attributes, and those attributes are fan interest, existing sports culture, geography, population, and then venue and infrastructure availability. Um, so that kind of cuts things down a little bit. Geography wise, it's got to be somewhere where they can get flights in and out of the hub. Hopefully, they'll be done with the hub system pretty soon, but hopefully, after this expansion, they'll be able to do that. But where do I think they'll go? As far as the USFL, I believe that the Denver Gold would be a strong possibility. Denver has a very strong infrastructure that's already existing. Um, they have a major fan base for all kinds of sports in Denver, in Colorado, period. And the USFL has recently had some activity with the trademark of the Denver Gold as well. So all of these teams that I'm mentioning would be have had some type of uh, dealings with their trademarks. So um, they've got to keep those trademarks active if they're wanting to try to um, go that route. So another one would be the Portland Breakers. I think Oregon has great fan base for football and all kinds of sports. So I think the league needs more fans out west, especially after especially for the XFL where the Seattle crack or not, I'm sorry, Seattle Sea Dragons wound up being cut in the merger. I know they were very disappointed there. But I think, like I said, they need some, and there's been recent activity with that trademark there as well for the Portland Breakers as well. And then we have the Canton, Ohio, or Columbus Bulldogs. I think Ohio has a huge. I mean, I don't think I know that Ohio has a huge love of football. The USFL championship for the first 2 years was in Canton, and they hosted a hub in 2023. Um, the activity for the intent of use for the Canton and Ohio Bulldogs trademark has been active pretty recently. I think September was the last thing I saw that they had done something with that. So hopefully we'll see something there. I also saw something with the USFL side with aviators. Something with aviators. So who knows? Maybe Carolina Aviators or North Carolina Aviators. The birthplace of flight. So could be something there. I'm not sure. That was a recent filing too. So that was just what I've seen. As far as the XFL goes, we see, I think the Orlando or New York Guardians would be back. I think it'd be maybe New York though. Huge football, or I'm not sure. Orlando would be great. Huge football area, plenty of venues to choose from, but and easily reached. The Guardian logos, as far as New York and Orlando, the trademarks have been had a lot of activity recently, and so I'm not sure. So we'll have to see there. I know. I'm sure Florida would love to get a team back for the UF for some spring football. The LA Wildcats, I believe, LA would be great to have spring football in. They have a lot of football in the fall, so they need something there in spring. West Coast needs a team back desperately. And then there's been a lot of activity with that trademark. So, not sure if that is feasible, but hopefully we can see something out that way. And then Seattle Sea Dragons, I'm kind of iffy on this one. They have a great fan base, one of the hardest hit with the merger. And then, again, they need a West Coast team. There's been some activity with the trademarks as well, but not as much. But again, this is all speculation. Nothing is concrete except for the talk about um, the trademarks. There have been a lot of movement going on with those trademarks, so hopefully we'll see something relatively soon. It probably won't be till after the season, so I could be completely wrong on all of these. So don't sue me if I'm incorrect on anything, please. Um, but in closing, we had a big week this past week. Uh, Good bit weekend for the Bulls this past Friday. Squadron not getting off to the best of starts, but a bit more news from the Stallions and the UFL. And we have 3 games with the Bulls this week, and the squad are taking on the Spurs tonight and host the Hustle on Saturday. But that's about all I've got for this week. I hope everyone has a great and safe Thanksgiving. Spend some time with your family and friends. And as for this week, that's all I've got. Good night.